I walked into my best friend's house without knocking, like I always did, but what I saw on that wall froze my blood. A wedding photo. My husband in a navy blue suit. But the bride wasn't me. It was Katie, my best friend Katie, smiling in a white dress, holding my husband's hand. Before I tell you how I made them both pay for what they did, let me take you back to where it all began. Because this story isn't just about betrayal, it's about how the quietest person in the room can be the most dangerous. My name is Anna, and 5 years ago I got married to Derek through an arrangement our families made. I know what you're thinking. Arranged marriage? In this day and age? But sometimes tradition has its place. Our families knew each other through business circles, and when they suggested we meet, I was skeptical but curious. Derek was quiet during our first meeting, respectful, asking me about my dreams and actually listening to the answers. He didn't try to impress me with money or status. He just wanted to know me. Our wedding was simple and elegant, surrounded by family blessings and traditional rituals. I wore a cream-colored dress that my mother had worn at her wedding, and Derek couldn't stop smiling the entire ceremony. I didn't love him on day one. How could I? Love isn't something that happens because two families decide it should, but I promised myself I would try. I would give this marriage everything I had. The first few months were like learning a new language. We discovered each other slowly. Derek would make my coffee exactly how I liked it every morning, even though I never asked him to. He remembered that I hated loud noises in the morning and would turn down the TV volume before I woke up. I learned that he loved old movies, especially the ones in black and white, and that he had this habit of humming when he was happy. Small things, ordinary things, but they built something beautiful between us. I remember the exact moment I realized I loved him. I had caught a terrible flu, fever burning through me, and Derek stayed up the entire night. He sat beside the bed with a cold cloth, changing it every few minutes, holding my hand even when I was too delirious to know he was there. When my fever finally broke at dawn, he was still there, exhausted but smiling. He squeezed my hand and said, "I'm not going anywhere, Anna." That's when I knew. This arranged marriage had become real love. But love wasn't the only thing that grew between us. Partnership did too. Derek's family had a business in real estate and imports, and when I entered the family, it was struggling. Derek's father was getting older, and the business needed fresh energy and better management. I had a degree in business management, something I'd worked hard for, and Derek asked me if I wanted to take a look at the books. "Just take a look," he said. "No pressure." I found chaos. Beautiful, fixable chaos. The financial records were a mess. Tax savings were being missed, suppliers were overcharging, and nobody was tracking the actual profit margins. It took me 3 months to organize everything. I digitized the entire accounting system, negotiated better deals with suppliers, found legal ways to save on taxes, and implemented proper tracking for every single transaction. Within 2 years, we increased profits by 40%. Derek would always tell people, "Anna is the brain behind this empire." And he meant it. He gave me access to everything: bank accounts, passwords, legal documents, property papers, complete trust, complete access. That trust would later become the sharpest weapon I ever wielded. But not everyone was happy about my role in the family business. Derek's stepmother, Beatrice, had married Derek's father 10 years before I came into the picture. Before I arrived, Beatrice controlled the family finances, and I discovered why she wanted that control so badly. She was stealing. Fake invoices, inflated expenses, money quietly transferred to hidden accounts. It was clever, and it might have continued forever if I hadn't taken over the books. I found the discrepancies within the first month. I didn't make a scene. I didn't accuse her publicly. I simply, very politely, asked her about certain transactions during a family meeting. The color drained from her face. She fumbled with explanations that didn't add up. I smiled and said I would handle the accounts going forward. From that day, Beatrice couldn't steal another penny, and from that day, she hated me. She started her campaign slowly. At family dinners, she would make comments, "Derek's father really forced this marriage on you, didn't he?" she'd say with fake sympathy. To relatives, she would whisper, "Anna trapped Derek for his money. You know how these ambitious girls are." To Derek himself, she would plant seeds of doubt. "She's controlling you, Beta. Can't you see? She's taken over your business. You're not even the man of your own house anymore." Her favorite line, the one she repeated like a mantra, was, "Your father tied Anna around your neck like a burden." She said it so often that I could see it starting to work on Derek. The poison was spreading slowly, but it was spreading. But through all of this, I had Katie, my best friend since high school. 12 years of friendship that felt like sisterhood. Katie was there when my father died during my college years. She held me while I cried for weeks. She was there during my wedding preparations, helping me pick flowers and laughing with me about cold feet. We had weekly coffee dates, late-night phone calls about everything and nothing. I trusted her with my life. I told her everything. The problems with Beatrice, the stress of managing the business, even my passwords and account details because she sometimes helped me with paperwork when I was overwhelmed. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly she played her role, how thoroughly I was fooled. The change in Derek started about 6 months ago. He began coming home late, always with an excuse about business meetings that lasted past midnight. He started taking phone calls in another room, closing the door, speaking in low voices. The affection between us cooled. He stopped asking about my day. He forgot our anniversary for the first time in 5 years. When I tried to talk to him about it, asking if everything was okay, he would snap at me. "You're overthinking everything, Anna. I'm just stressed with work." But the stress didn't explain the new cologne. It didn't explain why he suddenly cared about going to the gym 5 times a week. It didn't explain the smile on his face when his phone buzzed with messages he wouldn't let me see. The fight started small and grew. Small disagreements became big arguments. Derek's anger seemed to come from nowhere. "Why do you question everything?" he would yell. "Why can't you just trust me?" Then he would walk out, sometimes not coming home until the next morning. Meanwhile, Beatrice became sweeter to Derek. I would see them having long conversations, her hand on his arm, whispering things I couldn't hear. Once, I saw her and Katie at a cafe together. When I asked Beatrice about it later, she smiled and said, "Just discussing family matters, dear." I felt uneasy, but I pushed the feeling away. I was being paranoid. Wasn't I? Katie started accidentally running into Derek, at the coffee shop near his office, at the gym where he worked out. "What a coincidence," she would text me afterward. "Ran into Derek today. He seems really stressed. Maybe I should talk to him, help him relax?" I actually encouraged it. I thought my best friend could help my husband through whatever he was going through. I even suggested they meet for coffee to talk. I noticed Katie started dressing differently. More makeup, more fitted clothes, her hair always perfectly styled. When I mentioned it, she laughed and said she wanted to look good for a new job she was applying for. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my best friend. 2 months ago, Katie moved to a new apartment. She was so excited about it, sending me photos of the empty rooms, asking my opinion on paint colors and furniture. She gave me a spare key and said, "Come visit any time. Don't even knock, just walk in like it's your home too." I never found the time to visit. Between managing the business and trying to fix my crumbling marriage, I was exhausted, until that Saturday afternoon. Derek had left that morning saying he had business work to catch up on. The house felt too empty, too quiet. I was lonely and missing my best friend. On impulse, I stopped by our favorite Italian restaurant and ordered Katie's favorite pasta. I would surprise her with lunch. It would be like old times. I drove to her new apartment building, parking in a visitor spot. The building was nice, modern, clearly expensive. I was happy for her. Katie had worked hard for her career. I took the elevator up, holding the warm pasta container, imagining her surprised face. I used the spare key she'd given me and pushed open the door. "Katie, I brought lunch," I called out. Silence. The apartment smelled like fresh flowers. Everything was beautifully decorated, much nicer than I expected. Katie always had good taste, but this was different. This looked like a home, not just an apartment. I walked into the living room, and that's when time stopped. On the main wall, in a beautiful gold frame, hung a large wedding photo. A beach wedding at sunset, the sky painted in orange and pink. The groom stood tall in a navy blue suit, his hair styled perfectly, his smile wide and genuine. The bride wore a flowing white dress, holding a bouquet of purple flowers, her face radiant with joy. The groom was Derek, my husband Derek. The bride was Katie, my best friend Katie. My legs couldn't hold me anymore. I stumbled backward, grabbing the wall for support. The pasta container fell from my hands, hitting the floor, red sauce spreading across the white tiles like blood. But I couldn't look away from that photo. I studied every detail, hoping I was wrong, praying I was somehow mistaken. But I wasn't wrong. That was Derek's new haircut, the one he got 3 weeks ago. That was the suit I'd never seen before, the one he must have bought without telling me. That was Katie's smile, the same smile she'd given me 1,000 times, now directed at my husband on their wedding day. I walked through the apartment like a zombie. On the side table, more photos. Derek and Katie at a restaurant holding hands across the table. On the bookshelf, Derek and Katie at a park, his arm around her waist. I walked to the bedroom, my heart already knowing what I would find. Derek's clothes hanging in the closet next to Katie's dresses. His watch on the nightstand, his cologne on the dresser, the same cologne I'd smelled on him for months, the one I thought was a new purchase for himself. He was living here. With her. My husband was living with my best friend. I heard the door open. Katie's voice called out, "Anna, is that you?" I walked out of the bedroom slowly. Katie stood in the entryway, holding grocery bags, her face pale as death. She saw the spilled pasta on the floor. She saw my tears. She saw me staring at the wedding photo. "Anna, I can explain," she started, her voice shaking. I just stared at her, silent. The woman I'd called my sister. The woman who'd held me through my father's death. The woman who'd promised to always be there for me. "It's not what you think," she tried again, setting down the grocery bags with trembling hands. "You married my husband," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, flat, empty. "Anna, please sit down, let me explain." "How long?" "What?" "How long, Katie?" I screamed, and it felt like something broke inside my chest. She flinched, tears streaming down her face now. "6 months," she whispered. "The affair started 8 months ago. We got married 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks. While I was working late on the business quarterly reports, my husband was marrying my best friend. "I didn't plan this," Katie sobbed. "It just happened. He was unhappy, Anna. He came to me and I tried to stay away. I really did, but we fell in love. You were always so busy with the business. Always working, always managing everything. Derek felt like he had no power in his own life. He needed someone who saw him as a man, not just a business partner. I gave him what you couldn't. I gave him freedom." Her words poured out, justifications wrapped in accusations. She was blaming me for working hard, for being capable, for building the empire that fed us all. My tears stopped. Something shifted inside me, something cold and sharp and calculating. "Beatrice knew, didn't she?" I asked quietly. Katie's silence was all the answer I needed. "She helped you," I continued, pieces clicking together in my mind. "She introduced you to Derek properly, encouraged the affair, probably even helped plan the wedding. She wants me gone so she can access the business money again." "His stepmother wanted you out of the picture," Katie admitted, wiping her tears. "The business, the money, the control. She wants it all back, and I just wanted Derek." "And you thought you could have him," I said softly. "You thought you could take everything that was mine." "I love him, Anna. I really, truly love him." I laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound that didn't sound like me at all. You love him, I repeated. How beautiful. I picked up my purse. I need to go. Anna, wait. We need to talk about this. But I was already walking out the door. Behind me, I could hear Katie crying, calling my name, but her voice faded as I walked down the hallway. I took the elevator down, got in my car, and drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just thought. And as I drove through the city streets, a plan began forming in my mind. A beautiful, perfect plan. They thought I would break. They thought I would make scenes, beg Derek to come back, fight Katie in public. They didn't know who they were dealing with. For 5 years, I had managed a multi-million-dollar business. I had turned chaos into profit. I had built an empire from scattered pieces. And now, I would use those same skills to take everything. When I got home, Derek still wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He was probably with Katie, comforting her, maybe even angry at me for invading their privacy. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I made a list. All business accounts, all property papers, all passwords, all investments, all legal documents, everything that Derek had trustingly given me access to over 5 years of marriage. He had trusted me completely. That trust would be his downfall. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked in silence. I was pleasant to Derek when he came home. I smiled. I cooked his favorite meals. I asked about his day. He was confused by my calmness, but also relieved. Katie had called him in a panic after I left her apartment, and he'd come home that night expecting a war. Instead, he found me making dinner, humming softly. "Anna, we need to talk," he'd said, standing in the kitchen doorway. "About what, Derek?" I'd replied, stirring the pasta sauce. "Katie called me. She said you saw everything." "The wedding photos?" "Yes. Beautiful ceremony. Beach weddings are so romantic." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're not angry?" "Angry? Derek, everyone has their own life to live." I'd poured myself a glass of wine, calm as still water. "If you've found happiness with Katie, who am I to stand in the way? What choice do I have? Fighting won't change anything. I just want you to be happy." Relief washed over his face. "So, you're okay with this? With us separating?" "What else can I do?" I'd shrugged. "I'll just have to accept it and move on." He'd left that conversation confused, but grateful. "She took it better than I thought," he told Katie later. I know because Katie texted me, trying to apologize again, saying she was glad I was being mature about this. Mature. They thought I was being mature. While they celebrated their victory, I worked. I transferred business accounts, moving money systematically from joint accounts to accounts solely in my name. I changed property papers. Derek had given me power of attorney years ago for ease of business transactions. Now, that power of attorney transferred everything to my name. I worked with my personal lawyer, someone Derek didn't know about, ensuring every step was completely legal. "Can you sign these tax documents?" I'd ask Derek casually, and he'd sign without reading. He trusted me. After all, I'd managed everything perfectly for 5 years. Why would he doubt me now? I transferred the main business account. Fixed deposits were broken and moved. Stocks and shares were sold or had their ownership transferred. The house was already in my name, a wedding gift from my family. Derek's accounts, once holding over $2 million, now held a little over $3,000. My accounts held everything. I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had photos of Derek and Katie together. Hotel records, restaurant bills, text messages the investigator retrieved through legal channels, proof of their affair, their secret marriage, everything documented with dates and times. And then I dug into Beatrice. The investigator found her communication with Katie, messages planning how to break up my marriage, bank transfers from Beatrice to Katie, probably payment for seducing Derek. Most importantly, we found the trail of money Beatrice had stolen before I took over the accounts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars filtered through fake companies and hidden accounts. I built a file called The Truth About Derek, Katie, and Beatrice. It was comprehensive, damning, and completely legal. On a Monday morning, I filed for divorce, citing adultery and fraud. I attached all evidence. I filed a police report against Beatrice for embezzlement, providing all documentation of her theft. I contacted Derek's father, who had been kept in the dark about everything, and sent him the complete file about his wife's criminal activities. I contacted all business partners and informed them of the ownership change, providing legal documents showing I was now the sole owner. Then I changed every password, every single one. Business accounts, email, cloud storage, everything. I changed the locks on our office buildings. I froze Derek's access to everything, all in one day. Derek received the legal notice at Katie's apartment that afternoon. I imagine his face when he opened it. Divorce papers, business ownership transfer documents, property deeds in my name. And then he must have checked his bank account. The account that once held his safety net, his security, his power, now holding barely enough for a month's rent. His phone call came 20 minutes later. "What have you done?" he screamed into the phone. "What you forced me to do, Derek," I said calmly. "Everything you have, I built, I managed, I grew. You forgot that while you were busy with Katie. You can't do this. That's my business, my money." "Check the papers, Derek. Your name is nowhere. Every signature, every transfer, completely legal. You gave me power of attorney, remember? You trusted me. You manipulative—" "Choose your next words carefully," I interrupted. "I have 5 years of documentation showing I built that business from barely functional to highly profitable. I have evidence of your affair, your secret marriage, your betrayal. I have statements from employees about who actually runs everything. You have nothing but a cheating heart and a best friend who helped you throw away your future." He tried going to the office. The locks were changed. He tried the bank. His accounts were frozen pending divorce proceedings. He tried coming home. The locks were changed. He called his lawyer, who told him what mine had already confirmed. Everything I did was legal. He had signed every document. He had given me power of attorney. He had trusted me with everything. Beatrice was arrested that same week. Derek's father had handed over all evidence to the police. The proof was overwhelming. She would go to prison. Katie lost her job when the scandal spread. It turns out companies don't like employees who help destroy marriages and steal other women's husbands. Derek and Katie, the happy couple, suddenly found themselves broke, fighting, and facing a very different future than they'd imagined. Turns out love without money is much harder than they thought. Derek tried to apologize 2 months later. He showed up at my office looking thin and tired. "I made a terrible mistake," he said. "No," I corrected him. "You made a choice. You chose Katie. You chose betrayal. Now live with the consequences of your choice." The divorce was finalized in 3 months. I kept everything. Legally, rightfully, completely mine. The business flourished under my complete control. Without Derek's interference and Beatrice's theft, profits increased another 30%. I expanded to 3 new cities. I started a foundation to help women become financially independent, teaching them what I'd learned, that love is beautiful, but security is essential. I never remarried. People ask me sometimes if I'm lonely. I smile and tell them the truth. I'm complete on my own. I don't need someone else to make me whole. I still have that wedding photo of Katie and Derek. I keep it in my office, in a drawer. Sometimes when I need motivation, I take it out and look at it. It reminds me of an important lesson. Trust carefully, but document everything. Love fully, but protect yourself. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought my calm meant defeat. But I learned something powerful in those 2 weeks after I discovered their betrayal. The quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. While they were celebrating their love story, I was writing the ending, and my ending was beautiful.